Yes, I see Vice Chairman Chandler and Dr. Matthews, and is it Ms. Wanacek? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And the gentleman, I guess, in the, the lower right-hand corner, is that your witness?
Yes, it is. James
Okay.
Cooper.
All right, thank you. All right, we are now on the record. This is the Kentucky Public Service Commission. My name is Michael Schmidt. I am chairman and presently serving as the main hearing officer this morning. With us also is Vice Chairman Kent Chandler and Dr. Talina Matthews, who is the third member of our commission. In some previous cases, Dr. Matthews, for one reason or another, has recused herself, and somehow in the template order, she was listed as not participating, but she is participating in this case. Before we begin, I have a list, I guess, prepared by one of our staff counsel about some procedural matters in terms of speaking, using the microphone, background noise, and so forth, that at least I want to read, Ms. Wanacek, so that you and your witness will know if there's a problem, since there is no preliminary hearing or anything to discuss how this would proceed. So anyway, according to the list, it says, mute your microphone if you are not speaking. Attorneys, when interjecting, please state your name so the video record is clear. If you use a phone for the audio and a computer for the video, turn off the computer audio, otherwise there will be feedback. If you're in a room with several people on their own computers, turn off the computer audio for all but one computer. If another participant is in a nearby office, close the doors between the offices. Sound carries farther than one thinks, which can cause feedback. Once in the GoToMeeting software platform, go to your settings, icon looks like a gear, to ensure the microphone setting is on the microphone you are using. There's a pull-down menu feature in GoToMeeting settings that will list the available microphones. Use wired headphones or wired earbuds for better quality. Wired is preferred because wireless devices may lose power depending upon the length of the hearing. Please alert the Commission if you're experiencing technology failure that prevents your participation at any time in the proceeding. Attorneys should contact staff at the previously provided cell phone number. I guess, Ms. Wanacek, we probably won't have any problems, but if we do, somehow you got disconnected, let us know or call in or get back on and we'll stop so that nothing will happen that you aren't present for, okay? Do you have any questions or anything, Ms. Wanacek, before we start, or do you need to do anything to get ready?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Today's hearing is for the purpose of taking evidence in case number 2020-00185, the alleged violation by Columbia Gas of Kentucky, Inc. of the Underground Facility Damage Prevention Act. The Public Service Commission has been authorized by KRS 367.4917, parentheses 6, in parentheses, to enforce and assess civil penalties provided for in the Act and to seek injunctive relief for any violation that results in damage to an underground facility used to transport gas or hazardous liquid subject to the federal pipeline safety laws set out in 49 U.S. Code Section 60101 et sec. In this case, it is alleged that on August the 16th, 2019, at approximately 7:45 p.m., at 50 Bellefonte Road in Raceland, Greenup County, Kentucky, Bonzo Excavating, while using mechanized equipment, struck and damaged a 1-inch plastic natural gas service line which was mismarked by Columbia Gas of Kentucky due to, at least in part, an inaccurate records which stated that the service line was steel. While performing the locate request, the locate technician's locate signal transferred from the steel riser onto a water line that was in, I guess according to this, proximity of the natural gas line. Columbia has taken the position that it is not responsible for the damage and is not basically liable under the Act. Although the original order setting this hearing, Ms. Monchek stated that this was a show cause hearing, it is not. The burden of proof is on the Division of Inspections to basically prove the violation, and so the Division of Inspections will proceed first with the taking of evidence. You'll be entitled to cross-examine, and after your cross-examination, any of the commissioners who choose to ask questions may do so. When the Division of Inspections has completed its proof, you'll have an opportunity to present your witness, who will be subject to cross-examination by Ms. Frederick, and be subject to questions by commissioners. After the proceeding, I will allow each of you up to 5 minutes, if you'd like to discuss your position or make an oral statement, after which you'll have the opportunity to file a brief if you desire to do so. Okay? At this time, for the record, would counsel for Division of Inspections please identify herself along with her witness?
Thank you, Your Honor. Tina Frederick for the Commission's Division of Inspections, and our witness today is Mr. John Goins.
Okay, counsel for Columbia Gas of Kentucky.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Brooke Wanchek on behalf of Columbia Gas of Kentucky, and with me today is Mr. James Cooper, who will be serving as our witness.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wanchek. At this time, is there anything, Ms. Wanchek, that you would like to take up, or any matter that you think ought to be heard or discussed before evidence is presented? Do you have any pre-hearing motions or anything that you think needs to be, any objections to any of the exhibits that were, I guess, identified by staff counsel?
No, Mr. Chairman. Good.
Ms. Frederick, I offer you the same opportunity. Is there anything we need to discuss prior to commencing the testimony?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
If not, then Division of Inspections, Ms. Frederick, please call your first witness.
Division of Inspections calls John Goins.
Okay. Mr. Goins, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You may be seated. Ms. Frederick, you may ask.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is John E. Goins.
And what is your current employment?
My employment is as a investigator, consumer complaints investigator with the Division of Inspections in the Public Service Commission.
And generally speaking, what are your job duties?
We receive reports from utilities regarding underground natural gas line hits, and we investigate the reports that are provided and contact the excavators and determine whether or not there's a responsible party, and if so, we then resolve the violation through a demand letter with civil penalties.
Are you familiar with an incident of damage to an underground natural gas facility that took place on August 16, 2019 at 50 Belfont Drive in Raceland, Kentucky?
Yes, I am.
Did you investigate this incident?
Yes, I did.
And can you identify the paper that's in front of you?
It is my investigation report.
Okay. Ms. Emmons, if you could please bring up what has been submitted as Division of Inspections Exhibit 1, Investigation Report. Thank you. Now, Mr. Goins, if you could look at the investigation report as it appears on the screen, And if Ms. Emons will just briefly scroll through that, one page at a time. Does this appear to be a true and accurate copy of your investigation of this incident?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this has previously been filed, and I'll ask that it be admitted as DOI Exhibit 1.
Any objection, Ms. Monchek? Let it be so filed as a DOI Exhibit 1.
Mr. Goins, can you describe your investigation?
Well, I reviewed the report that was submitted by Columbia, and I contacted a Columbia representative to discuss the incident. We typically, when it's identified in the report that it was a non-located line or a mislocated line, we contact the utility just to get confirmation before proceeding with an enforcement action. So I contacted the representative of Columbia, and we had a discussion over it, at which time he indicated that Columbia had a certain perspective on this investigation, on the incident itself. So he asked for a little time to develop his response, and so that is the paragraph under April 30th in my investigation. That's the response that I received from Columbia. Based on that documentation, I then instigated an internal review with my peers and other employees of Public Service Commission to talk about the information that had been provided. And after we had this conversation, the decision was made to issue a demand letter to Columbia for not locating the line.
Okay. And what provision of the Underground Facility Damage Prevention Act did you determine that Columbia Gas had violated?
It was KRS 367.4909 sub 6A.
Okay. And I believe that's a pretty brief statutory provision. Can you just read that so that we have an idea of the violation?
Certainly. An operator shall, upon receiving an emergency locate request or a normal excavation locate request, inform the excavator of the approximate location and description of any of the operator's facilities that may be damaged or pose a safety concern because of excavation or demolition.
Thank you. And did Columbia Gas of Kentucky in fact locate the line that was eventually struck by Bonzo Excavating?
The portion of the line that was struck was not located.
Thank you. And what penalty, if any, was assessed?
The penalty assessed was $4,000.
And why was that penalty?
Our penalties are in statute, and by the third or any subsequent violation, the penalty is $4,000.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'll tender the witness.
Ms. Monchek, cross-examination. You're on mute. I think you're on mute because we can't hear.
Thank you. I have to unmute my phone and the computer. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, Mr. Goins. I'm sorry, I didn't even say good morning to you. When investigating a damage, what impact does an emergency locate ticket have on your determination of ultimate responsibility for damage?
Well, most of the time when we're investigating emergency dig tickets, the investigation centers on the excavator, and they do get more leniency with that because of the nature of the emergency. But in this particular instance, it was the operator and the locate issue that came up, which also was the reason for the internal discussion. It was a unique situation.
All right, and are you aware of when Columbia located this particular line that there was a signal bleed off from a water line?
Yes, that was included in the response from Columbia.
Okay, and Have you investigated other damages that involved a locate signal bleed off as being a contributing factor to a mislocate?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and in that instance, it's actually not an uncommon situation, is it?
I have seen it before. I'm not, real familiar with the frequency.
In those instances, how do you determine who's at fault?
Well, I rely on the language of the statute as far as an operator needing to know the location or provide the location of their lines. And in other cases that I've had with that situation, we have taken enforcement action against the operator.
Have you taken any enforcement against the operator since this particular incident?
I'm not sure.
Or something or similar? Sorry, go ahead.
Have we taken action against Columbia since this?
Against another operator if there's been an instance of a signal bleed off.
Yes.
That's all I have at this moment.
Vice Chairman Chandler, any questions?
No questions, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Matthews?
No questions, sir.
Mr. Goins, I have a question. The incident in question occurred, I guess, or involved a customer service line, is that correct?
Yes.
And is a customer service line an underground facility within the definition of the Act?
Yes.
Under the terms of the Act, is there any responsibility laid on the shoulders of a homeowner or an owner of the service line to basically provide any information in terms of location?
I don't believe so. I believe that with the orders that the Commission has put in place regarding the easement up to the meter, that it's the utility's responsibility up to the meter and not the homeowner.
Somewhere in one of the pleadings, or maybe it was in one of the DOI exhibits and in Columbia's response, there was I guess a statement that the line was believed to be a steel service line, is that correct?
Yes, that is in the response that Columbia provided.
But that it in fact was a plastic line?
Yes.
Did that make any difference insofar as DOI's position in terms of damage to the line or responsibility for it or the amount of the assessment, penalty assessment?
No, it didn't.
Is there anything in the record that indicates how the line was marked at all? Here's the question, I guess, specifically under KRS 367.4903, subsection 11, there's an A and a B, approximate location, and subsection A states how, I guess, a line or the parameters of line location, if it's metallic or non-metallic but has tracer wire, and another, subsection B, for non-metallic facilities without tracer wire, correct?
Yes.
I take it that after the damage, and I don't know if it's in the report, and so you may not know the answer, after the damage it was determined that the line, service line, in fact, was non-metallic without tracer wire. Do you know if that's accurate? I can ask Columbia's witness if you don't.
I don't know about the tracer wire. The information provided in the report from Columbia did indicate that it was plastic.
Thank you. I have no further questions. Ms. Frederick, any redirect?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Wanacek, anything after the questioning by commissioners? Any additional cross? May this witness be excused? No, having heard no response of Mr. Goins, you may step down and you're excused. Ms. Frederick, do you have any other witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Wanacek, you have a witness to present. And if
Yes,
you do,
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. James Cooper.
Mr. Cooper, would you please raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Wanacek, you may ask.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cooper, can you please state your name and business address for the record?
James Cooper, 2001 Mercer Road, Lexington, Kentucky.
Can you please describe your professional background?
I started with Columbia Gas of Kentucky in 1982 as a laborer. Worked as a laborer, worked as a lead person, heavy equipment operator for 13 years in the field. Then I moved to a supervisory position, worked several years there, then moved to a support role for several years, and now I'm the operations center manager for the company in Kentucky.
And what are you said that you're the operations center manager currently in Kentucky. What are your responsibilities as the operations center manager?
I oversee the day-to-day operations of the customer service and plant operations on the service side. That would entail the day-to-day operations with customers turning on and off gas service, responding to emergencies, and odor complaints. On the plant side, day-to-day operations, maintenance of our pipelines, repair of our pipelines, leak repair, service line replacement, locating of those facilities.
Have you previously testified before the Kentucky Public Service Commission?
No, I have not.
And have you had the opportunity to review the exhibits submitted by the Division of Inspection in this case?
Yes, I have.
Specifically, have you had the opportunity to review what has been marked as Exhibit 1 for the Division of Inspection, which is the Pipeline Damage Investigation Report?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to talk to you a little generally about customer-owned service lines and give the Commission some background. What is meant by customer-owned service lines?
That would be the portion of the service line was installed before 1988 from the curb valve to the meter setting.
When did Columbia begin taking ownership of the customer-owned service lines?
1988.
Are you aware of how many customer-owned service lines still remain in Columbia's territory?
Yes, there's approximately around 34,000.
Does Columbia have a program or a time frame to replace these facilities?
We have a specific program that falls with the AMRP, the mainline replacement program. We replace all the services that tie into that mainline facility. All other service lines, we have a leakage inspection program where we walk those either 3 years or every 3 years or every year, depending on if they're business or residential. if a leak is found, we replace them at that time.
Could we pull up the Division of Inspections, Exhibit 2? And if we could scroll down to page 4. Okay. Mr. Cooper, do you have a copy of that in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If you could look down at paragraph 2 and read the last sentence of the sentence, of the paragraph.
On what page?
On page 4.
What page?
4?
Paragraph 2, second sentence.
Yes.
Does it start with when the customers,
Yes.
when a customer service line is to be replaced, Columbia shall install a new service line at no cost to the customer, and thereafter will own, operate, and maintain the service line.
Does Columbia operate and maintain existing service lines?
Yes.
Okay. And then
Say that again.
and your
Can you ask that question again?
yeah, does Columbia operate and maintain existing service lines?
Yes.
Okay. And what does Columbia do to operate and maintain the customer-owned service lines?
We supply the throughput of natural gas through those lines, to those meters, and we do the annual or every 3-year leakage inspection program to make sure that they're not leaking. We also locate those lines when we have a one-call ticket.
Okay. And in your professional opinion, can you operate and maintain the customer-owned service lines without knowing the precise location of the line?
Yes.
Okay. You mentioned leakage surveys. Is Columbia required to do leakage surveys on the customer-owned service lines?
Yes.
If a customer-owned service line location is not known, how is Columbia able to comply with the federal code that requires these leakage surveys?
The leakage inspector, the person that walks those lines, is trained. When he comes up on a location where he doesn't know the service line runs, they do a crisscross pattern of the property, and they do also a pattern around the circumference of the building to make sure they cover all the ground where the service line may run.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn to a little bit about location of service lines generally. Can you please describe what the process is for locating a customer-owned service line?
The locator has a couple of different types of equipment that he uses, and he usually hooks up directly to a metallic line or a locate wire. This comes in 2 different pieces. One of them is a transmitter, one of them is a receiver. It puts that signal onto the pipeline or the tracer wire, and the other end, which he's operating, picks up that signal. He walks over the line where he locates it and either puts flags or locate paint down to mark the location.
And what resources does Columbia use to determine the approximate location of its facilities and mark them as accurately as possible?
They start off with the equipment, and then we have records, maps, and service line records with measurements of that facility that we can double check the locate with.
If Columbia determines that an accurate locate is not possible, what steps does it take to ensure the service line is not damaged?
If we can't locate it with the instruments or some other means, then we'll use a back truck or hand digging to expose the service line.
Is there any difference when locating a Columbia-owned service line versus a customer-owned service line?
Yes, we have maps and records to verify company-owned facilities, the customer facilities. We don't have any type of documentation to cross-reference that locate.
Does Columbia locate all service lines regardless of ownership?
Yes.
I want to move now to the incident at Bellefonte Road. Are you familiar with the events surrounding the locate on August 16th, 2019?
Yes.
Can you please describe, based on your knowledge of the facts, what happened with that particular locate?
The technician used the proper equipment, and he used what we call a direct hookup. It was presumed to be a 1.25 steel service line. The riser to the meter set was 1.25 steel. It had an old curb valve. So he hooked his equipment directly to the riser, got a direct, what we call direct locate, put a signal on that, didn't have any issues, and located the service line with no issues, a good strong signal.
So just to back up a second, you stated that you thought it was an 1.25 steel service line. What led the locator to believe that, if you know?
Well, we have our records, and our service line showed that it was 1.25 bare steel, and the customer's line would have been installed at the same time, and we don't have any records where we replaced the service line. And the riser coming up to the meter set was 1.25 steel. So there wasn't any reason to believe it was plastic. So what had happened, the customer had their side replaced. And a common practice is to insert plastic through the 1.25 steel, a smaller diameter size pipe, and that had been inserted and tied in below ground, so we had no idea that it had 1-inch plastic inserted through the old steel.
Wait, can I ask a question?
Thank
Are you saying that plastic had been inserted inside of the steel line?
Correct. That is a common practice. The way it's done now, it's brought above the ground through an adapter that adapts it from plastic to steel with a flex riser, so you know it's plastic when you go out there and look at it. And it's also accompanied with locate wire.
Thank you.
Can you describe just how locate equipment works?
The direct method, you hook the equipment directly to the locate wire or the steel line. It puts a signal on that, and you pick it up with the other end of the locator, the receiver part. That's what we prefer to use. Sometimes you're not able to do that, so you do it inductive, and you don't hook anything up. You set the box over top of the line or against the line, and it induces a signal onto the line, through the ground. And then you pick up, the signal with the receiver.
Did you hear me question Witness Cohen's a few minutes ago about a bleed-off signal on this particular locate request?
Yes, that happens, not very often, but more often on the inductive method. On the inductive method, which the tech used, it still happens, but not very often at all. This service line was run very unusual. Very simple when you see anything like this. I don't know why. When they inserted this up at the house, they went past the meter with the line, like 4 or 5 foot past the meter, then looped back around and then came back and tied into the meter, which there was no reason to do that. I don't understand why they did it. And that was the part of the line that Bonzo dug into.
So, backing up, if you're able to get a good signal on a locate, is there anything additional that the locator would do in order to mark or in order to locate the line? So you've got a good signal. Is there anything else to be done?
On the company portion, we would check our records. On the customer side, where we have no records, you have a good, strong signal. No, you would not do anything else.
Okay. And based on your knowledge of the facts in this case, would you have done anything else to locate this request?
No, I would have not.
You just mentioned a little bit ago about the installation of this particular customer-owned service line. Can you spin on a little bit about whether or not that was a normal, quote-unquote, normal installation method?
The installation method was normal as far as cutting the old 1.25" steel line in two out by the curb valve and up by the meter to give you a place to get access to the plastic and shove it through the old 1.25" line. That way you don't have to dig up the customer's line. What was very unusual about this is they dug a ditch past the meter setting instead of tying directly into the meter setting, went past the meter setting in the opposite direction away from the service line, the main, and put a big loop in it, and then came back in and tied into the meter setting. That's not, there was no reason to do that.
Okay. And based on your professional opinion, could Columbia have reasonably anticipated the location of this line?
No.
What did Columbia do after this damage occurred to ensure that a damage wouldn't happen again?
We installed a new 1-inch line, same method, but we installed it with locate wire, and we took the shortest route directly into the meter set without that loop. So it was almost a straight line from the curb valve to the meter set with locate wire, and brought it above ground to where you can directly hook to it with a locator. And filled out a service line record, a card, uploaded it electronically, so anybody that has to respond to that address can pull that up, they can locate it, they can double check with the electronic records for the measurements that were taken.
That's all I have for Mr. Cooper. The witness is available for cross-examination.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Frederick, cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why didn't the plastic that had been inserted into the original steel line, why didn't that show going into the meter?
They used like a steel compression fitting and tied into the old meter set that was sitting there, dug it up, cut it below, below, ground and tied into it.
Okay. Now, in your career with Columbia Gas, is this the first time that you have seen a service line that went past the meter and then looped back to it?
It's not the first time, but it's one of very few times.
And when you have seen that done, is there a general reason why it was done?
Not to my knowledge. Really, unless the plumber charged by the foot, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Vice Chairman Chandler, any questions?
Yeah, a couple. Thank you, Chairman. I just want to understand, as a general matter, this location, if you all have been doing leakage inspections on it since 1988, would have had 5 or 6 leakage surveys done in that time period, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so is this one, have you reviewed the records of those leakage inspections for this address?
No, I have not.
Okay, so you're unaware of whether or not, when they did the leakage inspections, whether they treated it like a line that they knew where it was, or one in which they conducted the survey in a way you explained where they don't know the line was, using crisscross or different methodologies?
I really don't know whether they did or not. The equipment they use picks up very, very, very small amounts of gas. So if you were within 10, 15 foot, you're gonna pick up the gas reading coming out from the ground. I don't know whether they use that pattern on this or not.
Okay. Was any part of the line that goes past the meter before it loops around, was any part of that metal?
No.
Okay, so before it got to the meter, how much of it was plastic?
All of the entire line from the curb valve to the meter was plastic.
Okay.
They inserted it through the old line and used it as casing. And where they cut the casing up by the meter, there was quite a bit of plastic that came out of that casing and went past the meter, looped around, and came back up.
So none of the casing met the meter, or not met the meter, but was at the distance of the meter?
No.
Okay, so how far did the casing end before it gets to the meter?
It was a few feet. There's a picture, I don't know if you can see it there, but there's a few feet where the steel ended, which would actually make you mismark the locate, probably even more of a chance to do that, because your signal would have been picked up on that casing, and where it was cut, that's where your signal ended, or the water was there too, and the water, it'll pick it up off the water too, especially with that casing being cut, whether you were indirect or direct, but he did hook direct. With that casing being cut, then, wherever it ended, that's where your signal was going to end, or it went on with the water line and ended.
And since the incident, have you all come across any records of this plastic being placed?
Being replaced?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to ask is, at some point the plastic was put inside of the metal, right? And when you all took this over in 1988, do you all have any records or have found any records in this investigation when you all are looking at this internally that would indicate the date of that change?
No, we don't have any record of it. It was pre-88, the type of plastic it was. It's an older style plastic, but it was put in before 1988. We don't have any records of it being replaced, no.
Okay. And is it Columbia's position that any plastic pipe that is not owned by Columbia and doesn't have a tracer wire that you all shouldn't be held liable for a mismark of any of those facilities?
Brooke,
Well, that's a question for the witness, and you can either answer, or you can say, I don't know what Columbia's position is, and then counsel can address it later, or not at all if she chooses. You can't ask your lawyer to answer the question, is what I'm saying.
I don't know what Columbia's position is.
Do you have an opinion on it?
My opinion is that we would do the best that we could, but that we would not be liable because we have no records of that. We have no idea how it was installed, what the installation practice was, whether it was installed correctly. We have no knowledge at all of that. And we would do the best of our ability to locate that facility. But yeah, unless we were negligent, I don't believe we should be liable, no.
And so you all took over, not ownership, but responsibility, I guess I would say, for these customer-owned service lines in 1988. And you said there are 34,000 of those still outstanding?
Yes.
Out of what, maybe approximately 130, 140,000 customers?
It's close to that, yeah.
Yeah, we'll say 100,000 plus. How many of those have you replaced? What was that 34,000 number before today? I mean, since 1988, you took over?
I don't know that number.
So, and I guess the ultimate question on this is, at what point do you all have a responsibility to replace those with service lines that you know the location of?
At the state league or with the replacement program that's going on right now, or when we find a lady.
Okay. And do you all inform excavators for these locations that you don't have adequate records for? Do you inform them of that?
On occasion,
Well, so, I mean, if the purpose of the act is a safety, is the basis of it is safety, right? That we don't, as Kentucky, we don't want people to be digging with mechanical use into lines, underground facilities with gas in them.
when we do that,
Is there a policy for Columbia to inform the excavator if you all have marked that even though you may have marked that you don't have adequate records so that they can proceed with due care?
if we get a good locate, we mark it. If we don't, we uncover it with by hand or a back truck. And if we can't do that, we have a person stand on site while they're excavating.
But do you have any specific policy if you don't have a map, right, of a home and you don't know where the line is? It may be a wastewater line, it may be a water line, it may be something else, right? But you don't know, you think you've gotten a good locate. I'm just asking, do you have a policy that you inform them, we made a locate, but just letting you know, we don't have maps for this area, we're depending exclusively on our locate equipment. So you should exercise a little care here.
We always tell them to use a little care when they're digging, but if we don't get a good locate, then we'll uncover it or we'll stand by while they excavate. We do not say we can't locate it and walk away, no.
Okay. That's all I have, Chairman, thank you.
Dr. Matthews, questions?
Yes, I just have a couple. On your 34,000 service lines that haven't been replaced, what is you said there were, you replaced them if they're leaking, correct?
Yes.
And you do the leak surveys how often?
Residential, every 3 years, business, every year.
Okay. Do you have, are these lines higher in priority with regards to the program, the pipeline replacement program? How do you, how are you prioritizing these lines that you took ownership of in '88 and haven't seen? How are you prioritizing those lines in that larger service line replacement program?
Engineering has a process for main line replacement, and services are figured in with that about priority of what part of that town the main line service line should be replaced.
So
It's based on factors.
So the service line program that you're talking about is if you're going down the street and you're replacing the main line, you're going to replace the service lines associated.
That is correct. And the service line leakage history, is a part in that of when that main is replaced too. But it's mostly the main line.
Okay. And there's no extra priority to these 34,000 service lines that you took ownership on 30-something years ago?
Not other than the every 3 year and 1 year inspection.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Cooper, I'm not sure I exactly understand the area where the break into the line occurred with respect to the meter. There was a picture, a photograph, but quite frankly, it was so bad I couldn't, vague or blurred or something, I couldn't understand what it purported to show. I don't know if you...
Can I draw you a picture?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that perhaps if you could draw it large enough so that we could see it, or maybe even your attorney later, you could file it here or something. I would try to understand how this happened, or where the plastic line extended beyond the steel line and so forth. So if you would do that, well, I think we'd all appreciate it.
I drew two pictures. The one on my left.
Is the square, does that represent the building or the home or something?
That's the house.
Okay.
That's the house. And then the line that goes, makes the loop like a N. That's how they ran it. And the one on the other side is how it should have been run.
Okay,
They ran past the meter.
looking at it, is the meter described or shown as a circle there up against the building?
Yes.
Okay, so if you could point to where the excavator severed the line, could you do that?
Right there.
Okay, could you maybe mark that with an X? Could you, with your pencil or pen, make an X? Now, as I understand it, at some point in time, a repair was made on this line, and that repair was that a plastic pipe was inserted into the steel, which was in existence, and that was the repair. But at some point, the plastic extended beyond where the steel line was. Is that what happened? Okay.
I just drew the basin, the old steel line that they ran it through.
All right. And for the record, so that we can get this clear, the steel line on your on your drawing is represented by a rectangle that goes around what you had shown as the original drawing as the pipe, correct?
Correct.
Now, if what you're telling us is that it doesn't matter whether the technician in performing the location work, whether the signal jumped from the steel line to a water line, he couldn't have measured beyond the area where the steel line was located anyway. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, the plastic apparently extended beyond the point perhaps where the meter was originally located, or they just cut steel pipe out altogether beyond that point, perhaps because that's where the leak was, and replaced it with plastic?
Yes. Now, that may have been a reason why they ran it that way. Maybe they dug a ditch, or maybe they ran the steel line that way and they just dug the ditch to pull the steel out. I have no idea why. The plastic shouldn't have been run past the meter, the steel shouldn't have been run past the meter. So I don't know why they looped it like that.
To the extent that the technician attempted to locate the line, what I'm trying to understand is, did the technician, where was the line the technician actually located? I suppose that the technician located a line, and it's said somewhere in some of the pleadings that basically the signal jumped from the steel line to a water line. Do you know what area that was in?
Of where it jumped?
Yeah, was the area that the technician located, did it actually locate the steel line that used to be the gas line to this premises?
It actually located the water line, but they were both in the same vicinity. It jumped off onto the water line. I don't know where the water line entered the house. Generally, they ran them in the same ditch.
Okay.
They were running wrought iron steel and bare steel for the gas service, wrought iron steel for the water line, and they generally ran them in the same ditch, ran them in the house the same way, set the water box and the curb valve pretty close together.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong. So the technician went to the meter, basically hooked on or did something to get a signal, and based on that signal, marked the location, the believed location of the gas service line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, but actually, the technician, the machine, located instead of the gas service line, because the service line at that location was in fact plastic, it located the water line. And do you know, or have, if you don't, please tell us, where the area that was actually marked was? In other words, where did the water line run beyond the house? Did it run in the same ditch or exactly the same location as the old gas line had run, the steel gas line, or not?
I can't say for sure.
Okay.
They ran together in part of that ditch, I know for sure. But where they ended, I do not know.
Okay. All right, you, given the limits of what we can do here today in terms of a drawing, is it your testimony that your drawing, as best you can, fairly and accurately represents the location of the gas line, where the plastic pipe and it left the steel pipe, the meter, the building, and the location where the damage occurred?
I'm going to look at another picture here. Looking at this picture that I have, the water and the gas run pretty close together.
I'm not sure I can see the picture. Do we have the, can we get the picture?
We can send it to you.
You're looking at it there. I don't know if you can hold it up in front of the camera or if that's possible. It's probably small. Okay. All right. Well, we can see something. So if you can, could somebody point out what's supposed to be seen on there? Ms. Monchek, I want to give you time. If you want to object or say something, please get on the record and avail yourself of the opportunity.
I know, my screen's just frozen right now.
Okay. Is that the photo that was actually in the record now? Is that the same photo?
I can't tell, Your Honor.
It is.
All right.
It is.
Okay. Well, we had
It's
it.
just,
It was
yeah, I
just
think-
really dark.
Yeah, I think when it was printed off, it's pretty hard to see. I think we could send something over a little bit more clear.
Well, I'm going to conclude by asking you to file, or your counsel to file into evidence. The commission didn't file an exhibit list. We decide the case instead of being a part of the prosecution or the defense. But Ms. Monchek, would you be able to, at some point, file that Mr. Cooper's drawing as an exhibit to his testimony in this case? Have we lost counsel for Columbia?
I think we have just for a moment, Chairman.
Ms. Wanachek, are you back?
I apologize, can you all hear me now? I got disconnected, I do apologize.
Oh, that's all right. Ms. Wanachek, you're back on the line, correct?
Yes, I'm back on, I apologize for that, I don't know what happened.
There were two things. One, I asked that you file on behalf of Columbia Mr. Cooper's drawing as Columbia Exhibit 2. Would you be willing to do that? Well, I'm going to direct you to do it, so
Yes, Your
I
Honor.
think you will. Now, although you identified exhibits that were filed in your in response to the Commission's order asking for a witness and exhibit list, I assume that you would like to have introduced the exhibits that you filed along with your exhibit and witness list. Is that correct?
Exhibit 1, we do not need to file that into, we did not use it, so we do not need to file that into the record.
Well, I think we ought to, I'm going to go ahead and ask that they be filed into evidence as a result of the testimony of Mr. Cooper. collectively as Exhibit 1 and the drawing as Exhibit 2 as soon as you can make yourself a copy and send it in along with a copy to Ms. Frederick. Now, is there anything else, Ms. Frederick, do you have any further cross-examination of this witness?
No, Your Honor, but thank you.
Chairman, may I ask a couple
Yes,
of questions?
Mr. Cameron, sure.
Thank you. Can we get the investigation report brought up?
Ms.
onto the screen?
Ms. Emmons, can you pull up that investigation report again? It's Division of Inspections Exhibit 1.
Thank you. And then on page, should be page 6 of that investigation report. And can you, Mr. Cooper, can you zoom in on that on your side, on your computer? Should have a button on the top that says zoom.
Well, I don't have a button. We got another picture here, though.
Yeah, you have this picture though. I want to ask, there's two pictures technically, and the one on the right shows, do you see the ditch at the far right part of the picture? On the second picture?
Yeah,
Okay, is that the ditch that the gas line was in?
no, that's the water ditch. The
Okay.
gas line, we marked, like, see the old, I guess there's marks there for the water line and the gas that run right there almost across there together.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to figure out. So there's a yellow mark and a white mark, or what appears to maybe be a white mark. What's the yellow mark represent?
That's the gas.
Okay,
That's what we marked it.
is that the actual gas or the water line where you thought the gas was?
Well, they're both there together. You can see that other mark. You see those white marks?
Well, I see both those white marks, but then I see the ditch a couple of feet to the right of that.
That's the new water line they were running when they broke our line back underneath.
Okay, and so I'm trying to make sure, so the yellow makes a hard left across the white mark towards the meter, right?
It kind of looks like yeah, here it goes past the meter, it does.
Okay, but I'm trying to figure out, if the water meter went straight, right, did anything actually go towards the meter, or was it marked that way?
Those marks are kind of deceiving there. That's almost parallel to the house, right there. Those marks are coming from the street, going up beside the house, and then it goes over to the meter. It doesn't turn over to the meter until it gets on back behind it.
Did Columbia Gas actually mark up to the meter?
Yes.
But the water line didn't go up to the meter. So if there was a bleed, it shouldn't have led them to the meter, right?
No, the water line goes up to I think it goes past the meter too. If you see that dish, they're running the new water line and they go past our meter. That's why they hit us. The water and the gas both go up. I think the water goes past our meter and then goes underground into the house.
I guess what I'm asking, if the bleed was onto the water meter, or onto the water pipe, then it would have led them past the meter, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay, explain it to me. If the mismark for the gas was because you were actually marking the water, and you struck the gas but didn't strike the water, then what were you marking?
We were marking the gas line for a plumber that was there to replace his water line. Where our casing had been cut in two, we were picking up our casing and the water line because they were so close together. Where he hooked onto the riser, that's where his signal's going to end. his signal's going to end where he hooked on, because that's where our line terminated when it came above ground. So that's where your signal would have started. So you would have been locating from there out to the street. You wouldn't have had any reason to think that the gas located out back towards the back of the house and then looped and turned around and then came back out the front.
But if you had bled onto the water line, that's what the reading would have indicated.
We wouldn't even have located that direction, going away from our meter set.
Okay, so I'm confused.
And
If the only part of the line that is exclusively plastic, right, is the part that got struck, that would have been the part that if you actually bled onto the water line, you would have been reading the water line, right?
You would not have located towards the back of the property. You would have hooked onto the meter set with your direct wire to your box, and you would have started locating from the meter out towards the street. You wouldn't even have tried to locate back behind the meter, because you got a signal going towards the street on the line going to the curb back. You wouldn't have had any reason to try to even locate going back towards the back of the property where your main line's not even located. It's out front.
So your initial read was on the water line.
I don't know for sure. I know we located both because they're right there together, the water and the gas.
Well, but you wouldn't have located the gas at the meter because you said at the meter it's plastic.
It is plastic, but the signal is going to jump back and forth when they're together. When the water and the gas is together like that, it's going to jump back and forth because the casing was cut on the old 1.25 inch steel. And you would have started locating from the meter towards the street, because that's the only place you could hook directly on to the steel service line. And you would not have even tried to start locating going out the back of the property, because your facility is out front. You would locate it from the meter to the main. And like I say, you had no reason that it should have come straight into the meter or made a 90-degree turn when it got to the meter to tie into the meter. There's no reason why it should have went past the meter.
So, but go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Cooper.
The way locate equipment works, you'll still get a signal after you pass the end of the line. And that's called bleed off. And that's taken into account when you do your locating. So when you locate out to the street, you could locate that service line and you could go past the main 3 or 4 foot, which is called bleed off. You'll get a signal. That's why you turn around and then you locate the main. So then where they intersect, that's where your service line ends. That's why you would go and locate the main. But at the meter, you have no reason to go the opposite direction. And you would have probably gotten some bleed off, but there's no reason for the line to have gone that way. So he wouldn't have located going out the back of the meter. He would have located from the meter to the street.
This is not the first time you've seen a loop, right?
No, it's not.
So
It's like one in 200 or 300 probably, or more than that, less than that. It's just, it's extra work to go the opposite direction, an extra pipe, like I say, no idea unless he charged by the foot or something.
And if that loop would have been metal in this instance, it still would not have been found, right?
It would not have been a loop if it had been metal. You wouldn't loop steel. You can't loop it.
Okay, well, so if it's a plastic with tracer wire, it wouldn't have been found in this instance based on the way you explained that you all do the marking. You start at the meter and you go towards the riser.
If whoever installed it had drawn up a service line record, yes, we would have seen the loop because it would have been drawn on your sketch. And it would have showed it like I showed it on that little sketch I drew up. That would be a permanent record that we would file, that when you got called out there, you pull it out and you see that they ran a loop for whatever reason back behind the meter.
But if you didn't have that record and you were just depending on the equipment, right, you would not have, the way you described how you all do it, you would have never found the loop.
I won't say never, but it's likely that sometimes you wouldn't.
Okay.
Depends on how far the loop went, how far the service line was away from the house before it went over to the meter. There's a lot of variables.
Okay. And do you believe that you all accurately marked the gas line in this instance?
Yes.
That's all I have, Chairman. Thank you.
Dr. Matthews, questions?
I don't have any.
Mr. Cooper, at the time the line was damaged by Bonzo excavation, did it contain natural gas?
Yes.
If, one thing I've in the various cases that we've heard that I've never completely understood is if there's some doubt about location of a line, why the operator doesn't avail itself of subsection 11A and B of the definition portion of the statute, which says that if you don't know, of course it says it's plastic pipe without tracer wire. If you had known this was plastic pipe without tracer wire in whole or in part, what would you have done?
We would have employed other methods to locate it. We have some other methods where we can insert like a tracer wire from the meter into the line and locate it, or we could use a vac truck to uncover it, or we could use just a shovel and uncover it by hand. And like I had said earlier, if we have any doubt at all, we either stand by there with the excavator or we uncover it. And when we have a good locate like this, strong signal, go straight from the curb out to the meter, no issues. We mark it and feel confident that we got a good locate.
All right, thank you. I know, Ms. Wanachek, you've cited, and so has council, the 1988, November 10th, 1988 order in case number 10127. I expect that sometime during the course of whatever the outcome of this case is, that order will be cited. You obviously have a complete copy of it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Anything further, Ms. Frederick?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Wanachek, anything further in terms of evidence? Do you have another witness or anything else you'd like to put on?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Okay,
nothing else.
All right, now, the case is, I guess, the evidence has been completed. Mr. Cooper, you may be excused. You can stay on the line if you like, but you won't be questioned. You won't be subject to examination anymore after this. Now, the evidence has been completed. Exhibits are all in the record except for the exhibit that Mr. Cooper prepared for us that you'll send to us, Ms. Wanachek. Is there anything you'd like to say? I'll give you 5 minutes if you'd like to kind of sum up Columbia's position. You don't feel that you have to do that, but if you'd like to, you can avail yourself of that opportunity.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and again, I appreciate the opportunity to present our case today. I think that this is a very unique situation. In this case, both with the method of installation and the fact that there was a bleed off. It's Columbia's position that it did everything that it could, that is reasonable to locate the service line. Just given the facts of this case, unfortunately, it was an inaccurate locate based on the method of installation and the type of pipe it was. There are 34,000 customer-owned service lines, and, Columbia received so many locate requests. If we had to just, in every 34,000 customer service lines, let someone know simply because it's a customer-owned service line that we can't locate it, that's a lot of locates that aren't going to be completed simply because they're customer-owned service lines. But again, I think that Columbia exercised due care in locating this line, and as Mr. Cooper explained, they felt confident in the locate signal, and they wouldn't have done anything different. I would like to ask if we could file a post-hearing brief in this matter. That would be great.
Okay. Ms. Frederick, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I would. Columbia's responsibility under the Act is very clear. 367-4909-6 indicates that it is Columbia's responsibility to locate the line and provide temporary markings if permanent facility markers are not there. And Columbia made a valiant attempt to locate this line, but for a variety of reasons, the line was not located. Columbia is in the best position of any party involved in this excavation to know where the line is, and it is their responsibility to protect the safety of the public by marking that line, and if they can't mark it, to notify the excavator of the approximate location. That was not done in this case, and the line was damaged. Therefore, it is the position of the Division of Inspections that the assessment of the penalty is appropriate.
Now, Ms. Zachary is our reporter, but Ms. Wanamaker, unfortunately, unlike what happens most of the time in court, we don't have a complete transcript, but have a sort of a summary and of questions that were asked, and then you can go on the video. You can get a video free of charge, and it syncs up so you can find testimony if you want to cite it. And the reason that I say that is because you may or may not want to wait until that's done and you have the opportunity to see the summary and compare it so you can get testimony from the witness. So I want to ask Ms. Zachary, our reporter, about how long will it take, or do you think, before this transcript could be filed and Ms. Wanamaker could get a copy of it?
I could probably have it done. We have a hearing tomorrow. I could probably have it done by Tuesday.
She says she can probably have it done by Tuesday. We have a hearing that may take a day or two starting tomorrow. So let's look at it this way. If next Tuesday, let's give Ms. Zachary a couple days to the 18th. So if you had, how many days would you like, how much time would you like in order to prepare your brief, Ms. Wanamaker? We're talking about if the time started to run on September 18th. How much time would you like?
I think October 2nd, if that would be okay with the commission.
That's 2 weeks, all right. Your brief would be due then on, well, I guess the burden of proof is on the Division of Inspection, so they'd have to go first. Is 2 weeks sufficient?
That's sufficient.
All right, so the Division of Inspections would then be October 2nd, and that would then mean that your brief, Ms. Wanamaker, would be due on the 16th, October 16th, so you'd have some additional time to look at the record and so forth. And then I guess since the burden is on, obviously, Division ought to have 3 or 4 days for a potential reply brief. So if we had 2 weeks, and then 1 week for a possible reply brief. So any reply brief the Division of Inspections might file would be due October 23rd.
Thank you.
Okay? And at that point in time, midnight or something on Saturday, the 24th, the case is stamped submitted, and we'll try to get an opinion out. Okay? We'll get an order out, a scheduling order on the briefing this morning in an hour or two. All right, is there anything else, Ms. Frederick?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms.
Thank you.
Wanamaker?
Just a quick question as far as procedure goes in submitting the Exhibit 2. Would you like me to file that into the record as well as sending Ms. Frederick a copy of it?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. You were going to file what into the record?
The drawing that Mr. Cooper did, so that would be Columbia Exhibit 2.
Yes?
Would you like me to file that in the record as well as email it to Ms. Frederick?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You could send her a copy, file it into the record, and that ought to do it. Then the record will be complete, except with the exception of your briefs.
Chairman, can I ask, our website and our regulations allow for uploading of photos directly to the PSC website, and the regulations lay out exactly what format they have to be in. Can I ask if, since the version that's in the record is a uploaded, then printed, then scanned version of the 2 pictures that were referenced throughout this, if Columbia would also upload the original versions of those pictures into the record?
Yes, so long as I can locate the original copies of those, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And you could probably get those done, the exhibits, the photos uploaded, and Mr. Cooper's drawing in by, I guess, the 18th of September, which would be the date, I guess, a week from this Friday when Ms. Zachary's record will be due. Is that doable, Ms. Wanamaker?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Right, anything further, Ms. Frederick?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms.
Thank you.
Wanamaker? Commissioners?
No.
All right, if there's nothing further, then this hearing is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.